Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Tales of Herding God Part 276 to 278 based on novel. So let's start. Overlord body. Hubugue and senior brother Lu looked at each other in dismay. He asked with a low voice, which god race is this constitution from? Both of them were at a loss. They had stayed in bullfighting world for a long period of time, and they rarely went out, so their understanding of the outside world was completely blank. Hubugue followed his parents to train outside in the early years. After he had become a permanent resident in bullfighting world, he had never gone out again. On the other hand, senior brother Lu had always been living there since he was young, and so neither of them knew about the legend of the Overlord body. Before Qin Mu walked out of the great ruins, almost nobody in the world had heard of the Overlord body before. It was only during recent years that people gradually knew about it, but there weren't many people who could talk about it in detail. Village chief was an honest man, after all, and he rarely talked about the Overlord body to outsiders. Beside Qin Mu, the woman was still in shock. She hurriedly touched her neck and still didn't come back to her senses. Qin Mu turned his head and said with a smile, "Sister, your head got severed by the god execution mysterious knives on the god execution stage just now. Your primordial spirit was also slain. I had to use Yudu spells and creation divine arts to reconnect you. Luckily I came quick, so the god execution mysterious knives didn't manage to suck away your chi and blood. Otherwise, it would be slightly tricky to save your corporeal body. If that were the case, I would have to prescribe spirit pills, and since my Daotai sack is with Fatty Dragon, I would need some time to travel back and forth." Only then did the woman came back to her senses, and she gave her thanks in a hurry. "My name is Saimei. Many thanks to junior brother for saving me." Qin Mu hurriedly said, "Big sister, it's nothing, don't mention it." "Wait a minute, there's still a scar on your neck." "I'm skilled in the art of beauty, big sister, don't move, let me remove the scar." Saimei chuckled and said, "You are really sweet. If big sister wasn't married with 2 kids, I would run away with you." "Big sister, stop talking." Qin Mu was serious as tiny runes burst forth from his fingertips, and he carefully fixed the scar on her neck. He said softly, "It's difficult for my spell to completely remove the scar, you still have to use ointment made from spirit herbs. It's a pity my Daotai sack isn't here." With his upper body bare, he was very close to Saimei, and that made her feel slightly uncomfortable. She thought to herself, "I've married too early, I should have continued looking." After treating her, Qin Mu let out a sigh of relief and said with a smile, "This scar on big sister has faded a little. I'll refine a few ointments when we leave here. You just have to apply regularly, and there will be no trace of it left. Also, I've just helped big sister attach your head, so don't exert too much force, as it may suddenly drop off if you do." Saimei was shocked and hurriedly held onto her neck. She didn't dare to move and smiled bitterly. "I couldn't pass the god execution stage, and now because you saved me, I'm here. I can forget about passing through Jade Capital. I wouldn't be able to cross, and my head can fall off anytime. I'll go over with you guys later, but I won't be entering Jade Capital." On the other side of the god execution stage, senior brother Lu composed himself and walked up to the god execution stage. Before he could even gain stable footing, the 2 bits of baleful air on the god execution stage began swirling over. Senior brother Lu flicked his fingers, as he tried to flick the baleful air away. He was learning from Qin Mu, who used 8 voices of ancestral dragon to vibrate his chi and blood, forcing back the baleful air surrounding his neck. Qin Mu then used the power in his finger to force the baleful air back. Yet he had still underestimated the power of the baleful air. Just as his finger flicked onto the baleful air, a chunk of his finger was lost with a slicing sound. Senior brother Lu was astonished and hurriedly rolled back down the stage, but the baleful air had already latched onto his neck. When senior brother Lu rolled down, there was already no head on his neck. Before Sima Xue could say anything, Qin Mu had already vanished. Qin Mu forced back the baleful air and picked up senior brother Lu's head. Doing what he had done, he reattached senior brother Lu's head and consoled him. Don't worry, there's not much problem even if the head leaves the body temporarily, but it cannot be too long. Too long and you will die. I've heard official sovereign of Yudu say one can still return to the living in the first 7 days. So you aren't really dead, you can still revive. Don't move, you still have one finger not attached. Hubugue coughed and brought something to his attention. Senior brother Qin, senior brother Lu is trying to say that you have reattached his head wrong. He has faces on both the front and back of his head, but there's still a difference. You will know when you look at the leopard prints on his neck. The finer leopard prints are on the front, and the thicker ones are on the back. Qin Mu took a look, and his face turned slightly red. Suddenly, his vital qi transformed into sword light to slash senior brother Lu's head off. Senior brother Lu was appalled, but luckily, Qin Mu quickly attached it back after adjusting the rotation. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief. Qin Mu's eyes glowed, and he gave off an encouraging look. Senior brother, do you want to try again? This time, you can roll to the other side of the god execution stage. Even if your head gets cut off, I can reattach it for you. In this way, you would have passed the test. Senior brother Lu hurriedly shook his head and smiled bitterly. No need for that. I've already tried once, and my abilities aren't enough to cross the god execution stage. I should just stay here and wait for you guys to return. I remember I still have a wife and kids at home. Even though he had participated in the training knowing that he would die, he still couldn't accept having his head severed and reattached over and over again. Qin Mu also didn't force him, and crossed the god execution stage again. Hubugue raised his feet, and walked up to the god execution stage step by step. Senior brother Lu and Sima Xue looked at him nervously. Hubugue was the last hope of bullfighting world, and if he couldn't cross the god execution stage, bullfighting world would have completely lost. If only an outsider such as Qin Mu managed to cross the god execution stage, the martial arts practitioners of bullfighting world would lose all of their faces. Qin Mu also looked at the stage. He saw Hubugue walking forward, step by step. He didn't have any additional movement, and seemed to be strolling, yet dozens of Hubugue appeared around him and struck out in all directions. It was like he had dozens of clones attacking as fast as lightning to force back the baleful air. The baleful air couldn't get close to him at all. Those weren't his clones. It was because he was attacking at such a high speed that, to the naked eye, it was as if there were dozens of him in the surroundings. What impressed Qin Mu the most was that Hubugue still looked like he was walking forward calmly. That was the terrifying part of his martial path. Martial soul entering the path, that's the martial path. Hubugue should be close to entering the path with his martial soul, right? Qin Mu was slightly puzzled. Under Southern Heavenly Gate, Hubugue's abilities weren't so strong, and he didn't achieve entering the path with martial soul. Yet, at that moment, it was like he was on the brink of entering that realm. Senior brother who is truly a genius. Qin Mu couldn't help exclaiming to himself. I relied on the comprehension ability of the Overlord body to be able to comprehend my technique entering the path, and my sword skills entering the path in my early years. Yet he has relied on his true abilities to comprehend martial soul entering the path. This kind of talent is truly admirable. What he didn't know was that he was still the reason why Hubugue was able to have a breakthrough on the god execution stage. He and Qin Mu were friends, not foes, however, Having Hu Bugue become competitive was something that couldn't be avoided. Not only did Qin Mu bring him pressure, but he also brought him motivation. As a result, he had given him inspiration, and forced him to work harder to break through. It was like how Qin Mu had met Xu Xinghua on the pleasure boat in Gold River back then. When they met, they exchanged cups of tea in the place of wine. Qin Mu felt the pressure of a pseudo-overlord body, and that made him fell into a state of comprehension. As a result, he created the primordial spirit guide with Ling Yuxiu. Hu Bugue's state was much the same. Qin Mu looked nervously at each and every movement of Hu Bugue, who was on God execution stage. It was an extremely crucial time, and if Hu Bugue's comprehension was interrupted, it would be harder than scaling up to heaven to return back to that state of comprehension. It would be extremely difficult to fill up what he had lost in the comprehension, and Qin Mu deeply understood how that felt. He had his comprehension interrupted before. He was escaping from Fu Riluo that time, and he fell into a state of comprehension when he was hurrying to Li City. Yet he got surrounded by experts of the devil race who broke him out of his state of comprehension by force. The state of comprehension was something that couldn't be sought. Even with their endless lifespans, the number of times a god could enter a state of comprehension was also countable with their fingers. Even an otherworldly genius wouldn't enter the state more than 10 times. Even an overlord body like me has only entered that state 3 to 4 times. Qin Mu's gaze stared at Hu Bugue's figure intensely. He was definitely a genius on the martial path. It was a pity that the god execution stage wasn't big enough, so he would soon walk out of it. Once he walked out of the god execution stage, without the 2 bits of baleful air threatening him, the pressure would decrease drastically. That would wake Hu Bugue up from his state of comprehension. Back then, Qin Mu had also broken out from his state of comprehension because of the drastic rise in pressure. Drastic increase and decrease in pressure would break one out of the state of comprehension. Finally, Hu Bugue walked down from God execution stage, and Qin Mu's fighting spirit overflowed into the sky. He suddenly attacked towards Hu Bugue. Sai Meishua cried out, and was about to stop Qin Mu when Qin Mu revealed his 3-headed and 6-armed form. He blew her around with 3 punches and 2 kicks. Sai Meishua crashed into the city wall of Jade Capital, and she hurriedly held onto her head to prevent it from dropping off. She was puzzled. Why is senior brother Qin attacking senior brother Hu? Qin Mu moved quickly, and his body left behind a series of afterimages. He executed heaven-pilfering divine legs to its limits, and his arms flailed around to attack at a speed that was too much for the eyes to take in. He wanted to put pressure on Hu Bugue so Hu Bugue could maintain his state of comprehension, to finish entering the path with his martial soul. Hu Bugue continued to walk forward, and his attack speed grew faster and faster. He blocked down all of Qin Mu's attacks, and the afterimages he was leaving behind were growing and growing. The power of the corporeal body divine art exploding out was also becoming stronger and stronger. Qin Mu had originally controlled the power of his moves, but he quickly felt the power of Hu Bugue's retaliation rising rapidly. His eyes lit up, and his moves became fiercer and fiercer. He continued to pressure Hu Bugue, and wanted to squeeze out even more of his potential. There were already up to 100 afterimages around Hu Bugue's surroundings. The number was still increasing, and he could still maintain a steady walking pace. Both of them fought into Jade Capital, and they slaughtered their way into the city in the sky. Sai Meishua's hand was holding her neck, and another hand was attacking at Qin Mu. Suddenly, a loud explosion rang out, as she got blown out of Jade Capital by Qin Mu. Her heart was full of grievances. You still call me big sister, yet you still lay such heavy blows. Both of them fought to the first shrine of Jade Capital, and guarding the shrine was a peasant woman. Even though she was a woman, she had the air of a general, and when she saw both of them fighting over, she was about to make a move. However, she suddenly realized Qin Mu's intention, and immediately suppressed her qi, blood, and cultivation. She didn't alarm either of them and just let them pass. Hu Bugue is entering the path with his martial soul. He might be the first to cross into the celestial palace from life and death realm. The woman put her hands behind her back, and her eyes sparkled. She saw them smashing the back door of the shrine into smithereens, and said with a low voice, "No. He will be the second, that's because." She walked out of the broken back door of the hall, and looked up at numinous Sky Hall. He also doesn't have a divine bridge. There's an impassable mountain in the martial path, and he is this mountain. He is the number one man on the martial path. The woman walked to the next shrine in Jade Capital, and the god guarding that shrine was also a farmer from the same village. "Dear." The god guarding the place saw her arrive, and gently nodded his head. He continued to look at Qin Mu and Hu Bugue, who were fighting fiercely in the shrine. Both of them stood together. They were husband and wife. Back then, when founding Emperor Celestial Heavens was wiped out, martial arts heavenly teacher, who was in charge of wars, led the strong practitioners of bullfighting palace to fight. That battle was filled with numerous variables and unforeseen events that they still couldn't understand. Founding Emperor God dynasty was wiped out so fast that it made them, the gods of wars, feel at a loss and completely helpless. After that battle, the war gods of bullfighting palace had a grave number of casualties, and only 100 of them were left. Martial arts heavenly teacher's heart was discouraged, and he brought them to search for the remains of the war gods. He then hid bullfighting palace in the depths of the great ruins, and the war gods became farmers. Some people formed families, but rarely would people give birth to children. That was because the divine bridge realm no longer existed for their children, and they wouldn't be able to escape death. They didn't want to see their children die. The glory in the past had become a withered page in their lives. They were only farmers. Only by entering bullfighting palace, and seeing the descendants of their comrades still preserving their fighting spirit, would remind them of their glorious days. Qin Mu and Hu Bugue fought their way there, and both of their clashes were becoming faster and fiercer. They truly showed every aspect of the words, martial battle. The muscles and tendons in their corporeal bodies, their vital qi, and their primordial spirit were all tight as one. They both had their unique cultivation method and method of exerting force. Martial path divine arts were also corporeal body divine arts, and they belonged to the battle technique school. Corporeal body divine art burst forth with the power of the corporeal body. Spells weren't cultivated, but the power from the corporeal body could even surpass the power of spells. And martial path divine art required one to enter the path with the martial soul. There weren't many people who could achieve that step in the current world. Under Qin Mu's pressure, Hu Bugue was getting closer and closer to that realm. His battle techniques were becoming stronger and stronger. Gradually, Qin Mu was also improving his own battle techniques when fighting with him. To be able to execute such strong 3 heads and 6 arms, he has received the true teachings. That woman said, "He is much stronger than most of the 3-headed and 6-armed gods in the celestial heavens, but if he doesn't comprehend entering the path with a martial soul, it's still hard for him to be a match for Hu Bugue." The farmer beside her said, "Hu Bugue is truly strong, to be able to block the attacks of 3 heads and 6 arms. On the contrary, his attacks can even grow stronger and stronger. His ability and comprehension have already reached the level of the martial soul entering the path. His improvement is truly fast." The woman also felt the same. Hu Bugue's improvement was too fast. When he returned to bullfighting world, he had already awakened his spirit embryo, and no one thought highly of him. The people of bullfighting world felt he was useless and wouldn't be able to cultivate his martial soul. Yet Hu Bugue had done it nonetheless. Not only did he cultivate his martial soul, He even managed to cultivate his martial path, primordial spirit, before everyone else 10 years later. And he would even surpass everyone to enter the path with his martial soul first. That kind of aptitude, talent, and hard work were truly rare in the world. Qin Mu and Hubugue fought their way out of the shrine, and the back door was shattered into pieces as well. The husband and wife were both speechless. The back of my shrine was also messed up. Let us go to the next shrine. That's the place where senior brother Tien is guarding. His temper is explosive, so I'm afraid he would attack Hubugue and stop him from comprehending the path. The husband and wife hurried to the other shrine. Qin Mu and Hubugue had already fought to that place, but the god that was guarding it didn't attack right away. Instead, he looked quietly at the two people smashing their way through his shrine. It's been a long time since bullfighting world had a youth that could enter the path with the martial soul. The god with the surname Tien had an agitated expression, and he walked out of his shrine with the husband and wife. He followed Qin Mu and Hubugue to walk forward and said with a low voice, "It's too difficult to enter the path with the martial soul, it's so much harder than entering other paths. And now, we have waited for such a youth." Everyone could see that Qin Mu fighting Hubugue was with good intentions. It was to let Hubugue maintain his state of comprehension, so they didn't interrupt them. Gradually, Qin Mu and Hubugue almost smashed through 36 shrines in Jade Capital. More and more gods followed behind them, and they looked anxiously at the battle. Suddenly, Hubugue's aura rose drastically, and everybody's eyes lit up. Their expressions became nervous. That was the most crucial period for Hubugue. Whether or not he could cross that step was dependent on that very moment. Right at that moment, all of Hubugue's afterimages vanished, and in that instant where those afterimages vanished, every one of them was executing a different corporeal body divine art. Every move was completely different. Next, the illusions overlapped with Hubugue's body. The hair of the gods watching the battle stood on their ends. It was a natural reaction from their body, and it was a natural reaction people that cultivated martial arts had to the martial path. They all had astonishing attainments in corporeal body divine arts, and even though they had cultivated profound techniques, they could never cross into entering the path with the martial soul. Their aptitudes and comprehensions were limited, and their potential was dug clean. Even though they sensed the martial path right in front of them, they could never take that step and walk into the gate. The instant when Hubugue entered the door to the martial path, it actively roused their qi. Hubugue slightly squatted, and his qi activity burst forth to turn Qin Mu's blood cold. That terrifying qi activity made him felt his death approaching. He didn't think and just executed the first form of his calamity sword to defend. However, he suppressed it by force. The power of founding emperor was too strong, it was a sure-kill strike. His motive was to pass martial arts heavenly teacher's test and save Saint Woodcutter righteously. I'm teacher Woodcutter's disciple, martial arts heavenly teacher, is always looking down on teacher Woodcutter. I need to fight back for his reputation. When he thought until there, Hubugue's power had already burst forth. The explosive speed of martial path divine art was surprisingly fast, and it was so fast that it could be compared to Qin Mu's opening calamity sword. The explosive speed of that kind of divine art far surpassed Qi Jui's great divine art, and it was even faster than Zhehuali's knife. It was so fast that no one could react in time. Wind shaking the pines and vibrating the valleys. The punch of his was simple, but after the punch was released, Qin Mu saw the afterimages formed from the spirit of his fists. Different moves would form a different series of afterimages out of Hubugue's body. Qin Mu executed Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique, and showed his 3 heads and 6 arms. Each arm executed a different corporeal body divine art to defend, and the instant they collided, Qin Mu felt an unimaginable mighty force pouring over, crushing the power in his body without any obstruction. His arm vibrated, and he felt a numb feeling spread through his arms. His primordial spirit was also vibrating, and he couldn't gather his vital qi at all. The spirit of the martial path coming from Hubugue's move pierced straight through him. He broke through all skills with one strike, and was truly impressive. It made no one a match for him. He had already returned to his true self, and gathered all the martial art he had learned into one fist. The fist looked incomparably simple, but there were unimaginable transformations in the fist. Qin Mu moved back and gave an endless roar, as he executed everything he had learned. Old Ma's fists that were heavy as Mount Meru, butcher's knife that sliced open the fake sky, cripple's legs that was fast as lightning, all kinds of past human emperors' divine arts, first ancestor human emperors' heaven and earth mudra skills, Sakrabuddha's Buddhism divine art. Everything was executed by him. He broke through the first afterimage of Hubugue, and yet the second afterimage followed closely after. Qin Mu continued to move back, and the stone slab under his feet exploded. He was like a newbie that had just learned martial arts. He mobilized all of his strength to activate his martial soul, gathering all of his strength in his corporeal body to defend against Hubugue. The speed to execute corporeal body divine art was faster than spells in the first place. With 3 heads and 6 arms, his speed was 3 times faster than normal people. Furthermore, Qin Mu's feet shifted, and with half a step, his foot rotated 1/3 and the divine arts from another pair of arms burst forth to welcome Hubugue's great divine art. He was like a top that was spinning backward crazily. In an instant, he moved over 10 miles back and crashed into the back door of a shrine, piercing through shrine after shrine. His 6 arms instantly executed countless corporeal body divine arts in an instant, and his potential was raised to the maximum. Previously, his qi and blood were like a rainbow, but at that moment, his qi and blood was like fire overflowing into the sky. On the other hand, Hubugue still stood there with a pose that was striking out with a fist. Meanwhile, in front of him, afterimages exhibited all kinds of corporeal body divine arts. They were either punches or kicks, and every move was different. Afterimages stretched crazily forward, and the speed was extremely fast. In that instant, both of their attack speeds were beyond imagination. Not until Qin Mu moved out of the city of Jade capital did the rumbles from their corporeal body divine arts reach the ears of the gods in Jade capital. It was slow to describe, but it happened in an instant. From the explosion of Hubugue's fist until Qin Mu moved out of Jade capital, there were over a dozen miles of road crossed in a mere instant. In that instant, the corporeal body divine art that Qin Mu executed was uncountable. He was forced out of Jade capital by Hubugue's great divine art, and only then did the series of footprints he had left on the ground explode. Countless shattered rocks exploded along with his footsteps, and it was as radiant as fireworks. Bang, bang, bang. Shattered rocks exploded like fireworks all the way out of the city and all the way to Qin Mu's feet. And at that time, all of Hubugue's afterimages overlapped together and appeared in front of Qin Mu. The power of his great divine art on the martial path exploded altogether. It was the essence of the move, wind shaking the pines and vibrating the valleys. Even if one could handle the series of transformation in front, one would find it difficult to receive the power of all the afterimages overlapping into one. The great divine art, after stepping into the realm of the path, was so powerful. There was nothing he couldn't do. Stepping into the path with a martial soul was actually that difficult, and even the gods under martial arts' heavenly teacher couldn't reach such achievements. However, after entering the realm of the path, his cultivation simply had a world-changing raise. Qin Mu had no other thoughts, and only Hubugue's fist was left in his eyes. Other than that, there was nothing else. His qi and blood raged again, and at that moment, not only was he possessed by his martial soul, but his primordial spirit had also entered a kind of mysterious and warlike state. That was his martial path primordial spirit. There were 3 steps to entering the martial path. The first step was awakening the martial soul, the second step was to awaken the martial path primordial spirit, and the third step was to enter the martial path, and comprehended his own great divine art of the martial path. He had spent 10 days to awaken his martial soul, and under the pressure of Hubugue's great divine art, his potential burst forth, and he awakened his martial path primordial spirit in an instant. The dozens of gods were about to help him block the strike from Hubugue, when a heavy voice came from the front of Numinous Sky Hall. "Don't be reckless." The gods hurriedly stopped and looked over to see a god with a bull head and human body, with flames flickering on his body. He was like a god king that stood in front of Numinous Sky Hall, and looked very impressive. He was none other than the unremarkable-looking old bull under the old farmer. The old bull looked completely different from when he was farming, and his eyes opened up to shine in all directions. Don't interrupt him from entering the path with his martial soul, now is his most crucial period. Entering the path with the martial soul. Everyone was bewildered, and a woman muttered, "Hasn't Hubugue achieved martial soul entering the path? He should be waking up from his martial soul entering the path soon. Could it be?" The gods revealed a look of disbelief, and looked at where Qin Mu had clashed with Hubugue. Over there, Qin Mu seemed to grow 1,000 arms, executing the martial arts he had learned in a different way compared to Hubugue. It was evident that the person that the old bull had mentioned was entering the martial path wasn't Hubugue. "Is this the Overlord body from the legends that big heavenly teacher Woodcutter mentioned?" the old bull said softly. Part 277. The gods in Jade Capital were shocked, and they looked towards Qin Mu. "He's the Overlord body that big heavenly teacher mentioned. It's not eternal peace imperial preceptor." In just a short instant, Qin Mu's 1,000 arms returned back into 6 arms, and all of the divine art combined at that moment to transform into 6 palm forces to welcome Hubugue's wind shaking the pines and vibrating the valleys. Return of 1,000 palms beyond the strange peaks of heavens. That was his divine art on the martial path. Hubugue's wind shaking the pines and vibrating the valleys had a will like the wind. His figures were like pines, where 1,000 of them transformed into a forest. When his divine art burst forth from his fist, it was like a wind blowing through the pine trees, and yet the power was shaking the valley. The great divine art of Qin Mu had combined all of the battle techniques and corporeal body divine arts he had learned before. His 1,000 arms and 1,000 palms earlier were to fuse the moves and divine art. The battle techniques of Old Ma, Butcher, Blind, and the past human emperors became strange peaks in his hands. The will of the fists was different, and when fused together, they were return of 1,000 palms beyond the strange peaks of heavens. The divine art was trying to exhibit the magnificent scenery of different strange peaks. Spirit embryo, 5 elements, 6 directions, and celestial being divine treasures appeared, but the strange thing was that other than his missing 7 stars divine treasure, another set of spirit embryo, 5 elements, 6 directions, and celestial being divine treasures were reflected out. The top being the God path and the bottom being the devil path. God and devil reflected each other as they gathered together. The 36 war gods in Jade Capital finally understood why Qin Mu was able to defend against Hubugue's great divine art, when he was only on celestial being realm. Hubugue was on life and death realm, and had cultivated to perfection. That was because everyone in bullfighting world would be trapped on life and death realm, and wouldn't be able to take a step forward. Therefore, bullfighting world had developed each and every realm to perfection. Hubugue was one of the well-known figures. It could be said that on life and death realm, no one's cultivation could be denser than his. When Qin Mu and Hubugue fought, he could actually be on par with him, and that showed that Qin Mu's cultivation on celestial being realm wasn't much different from Hubugue. When the 36 war gods saw Qin Mu's divine treasures, only then did they realize the reason for Qin Mu's dense cultivation. He cultivated both god and devil paths, and had two kinds of corresponding divine treasures. He was probably the only one that existed from the past to the present. Truly an overlord body, big heavenly teacher wasn't lying. The 36 war gods were astonished. When Saint Woodcutter came to their little mountain village to persuade the old farmer, he had mentioned the overlord body and the saint that appears once every 500 years. Back then, the villagers were all listening and were very curious about Eternal Peace's reform. They were also very curious about the saint that appears once every 500 years. It was just that in the next moment, Saint Woodcutter had been blown into the ditch by the old farmer, who broke all his bones. Luckily, the old farmer didn't use any force, so he wasn't dead yet. However, that was the reason why they didn't know who was the overlord body and who was the saint. The old farmer had a very deep grudge with Woodcutter, and the problem between them didn't just lie in the ranking of the heavenly teacher. There were also other grudges involved. Listening to what the old bull said, the overlord body seemed to be the descendant of founding emperor, who had come to find Woodcutter. However, they were still in slight disbelief. Only, seeing how Qin Mu had broken through in an instant and cultivated his martial path primordial spirit, literally stepping into the martial path at the same time, and finally showing the corresponding divine treasures of the god and devil path, they had no choice but to believe. From a divine arts practitioner that didn't possess a martial soul to comprehending his martial soul, his martial path primordial spirit, and even nearing comprehension of the great divine art of his martial path in just a short span of 10 days, how could such a person not be the overlord body? However, they had never thought that the reason why Qin Mu was able to comprehend the martial soul so fast was because of his good foundation. His foundation was simply too good. Ever since Qin Mu had failed his spirit embryo awakening, when he was young and everyone in disabled elderly village discovered he was an ordinary child that couldn't cultivate, it was village chief's overlord body that had revitalized their spirits. They pushed all kinds of spirit medicines and blood of the spirit beasts on Qin Mu, and the training of all the elders for Qin Mu was also abnormally fierce. Qin Mu also had no doubt he was the overlord body, and he trained diligently with 100% confidence. At that time, he was only a step away from awakening his martial soul. The most crucial point was the Overlord Body 3 elixir technique that village chief had taught him. The technique was the Daoyin technique that was so common on the streets, and yet Qin Mu had cultivated it to a height that no one had ever reached before. Furthermore, it wasn't an ordinary Daoyin technique. It was a technique that founding emperor had passed down, and it was originally the ultimate art of the Qin family. Even heavenly saint cults' great educational heavenly devil scriptures was a branch of that technique. With such a good foundation, the battle techniques Qin Mu had learned in the past, the lifetime works of the past human emperors, and even the 3 emperors' throne techniques he had fused, his foundation had already surpassed Hu Bugue, who had cultivated diligently over the years. The spirit of eternal peace era's reform was incorporated into the spirit of his martial path, and it surpassed just purely having the spirit of the martial path. With such dense accumulation, that was why he was able to comprehend the true essence of the martial path in such a short time. That wasn't what the war gods and the old bull had guessed. Instead they guessed that it was because he was an overlord body. However, Qin Mu didn't understand the reason behind all of it, nor did anyone else, so they could only push it to the reason that he was an overlord body. Qin Mu's 6 palm forces collided straight, with wind shaking the pines and vibrating the valleys, and the power of 2 different divine arts on the martial path exploded. However, because of the time constraint, Qin Mu didn't manage to comprehend his great divine art to perfection, so he was suffering a disadvantage in power. However, since he had 6 arms, the lack in power was made up by overlapping 3 great divine arts. The 2 great divine arts of the martial path collided, and the land beneath their feet loosened up and exploded. Even though it was bullfighting palace, and was incomparably sturdy, the two experts that had entered the martial path still raised quite an astonishing wave. A ball of bright light exploded at where they had collided, becoming brighter and brighter. It swelled up rapidly and swallowed everything in its surroundings. Violent air currents then poured into all directions along the ground, and the gales swept up the clothes of the war gods standing far away. In the center of the bright light, two trails of qi and blood rushed into the sky and presented the apparition of two majestic war gods clashing. They looked lean and mean. Finally, the gales moved into the distance, and the light faded away. The apparition of qi and blood also faded. Qin Mu and Hubugue coughed up blood, and their auras became listless. Both of them collapsed and sat down on the ground while breathing heavily. As they gasped for breath, the air would even bring bloody foam out from their mouths. Hubugue looked at Qin Mu, and Qin Mu also looked at Hubugue. The smiles on their faces became wider and wider. Suddenly, their hands clasped tightly together, and they started laughing loudly. The old bull and the 36 war gods let out sighs of relief. They were worried they couldn't accept ending in a draw, and would start fighting again. They didn't expect both of them to be broad-minded people, and only value the connection between the same path. They didn't have any of those jealous thoughts. Brother Hu, there's not much future if you remain in bullfighting world. Qin Mu was excited and wiped away the blood on the corners of his mouth. He dispersed his three-headed and six-armed form, before sticking his willow leaf back to seal his third eye. He said with a smile, "There are many people out there that aren't inferior to you and me in the outside world. Furthermore, eternal peace's reform is spreading like wildfire, and they need talents like you. Don't you want to cross the divine bridge and enter the celestial palace? I think you can meet my bosom buddy, Xu Xinghua." His expression was very dramatic, and he was full of vigor. "Xu Xinghua is very powerful, he is even smart. He's a talent just inferior to me." He had figured out that all divine treasures are actually just one divine treasure, and he plans to refine all divine treasures into one. He has already managed to combine the 6 directions realm and 7 stars realm into one, and reduce one realm for divine arts practitioner. Currently, he is planning to fuse celestial being realm as well. Hubugue cried out, "What you mean is even if the martial arts practitioners of our bullfighting world don't have divine bridge divine treasure, we can just fuse the other divine treasures." Qin Mu nodded his head and said with a smile, "Do you think Xu Xinghua is worth a visit?" Hubugue was ineffably excited, and he got up. I must meet him. I already can't wait to meet him. When are we leaving? Why don't we leave now to visit him?" Qin Mu said in delight, "If you meet him, you will definitely like him. He is a very charming person." The old bull stared with his eyes wide open, and he thought to himself, "Are they not going to continue the challenge? They just need to pass my test, and they will be able to enter Numinous Sky Hall and challenge Old Master, who is on the Emperor's throne." The 36 gods of Jade Capital also looked at one another in dismay. They were at a loss. The main test for the martial arts practitioners of bullfighting world was to search for a path to let the descendants, who were missing divine bridges, enter the celestial palace. Yet those two young fellows became more and more excited as they talked and looked like they wanted to just leave. But from what they were saying, it seemed that in Eternal Peace Empire, there was a miraculous man who could solve the problem. It was forgivable if they wanted to go out and find the person called Xu Xinghua. However, the path of success was also right in front of their eyes. Didn't they want to at least give it a try? They just needed to defeat the old bull and challenge martial arts heavenly teacher, who was in Numinous Sky Hall. They might just be able to cross the divine bridge and fly into the celestial palace directly. The old bull coughed. "Hubugue, Qin Mu, aren't you coming up?" Hubugue hesitated for a moment and didn't know if he should continue the challenge. Qin Mu asked softly, "What are the abilities of martial arts heavenly teachers Bu?" Hubugue whispered, "I've never seen him make a move before, but I heard that martial arts heavenly teacher is a strong practitioner on Emperor's throne. Usually, he is the one who carries martial arts heavenly teacher into battle. To be able to carry a strong practitioner on Emperor's throne, he must at least be on the numinous sky realm. I even heard people say that if it wasn't because the senior Nyo has no desire for power, he could have controlled one of the celestial palaces in founding emperor era." Qin Mu calculated and shook his head. "I'm probably not senior Nyo Sandwa's match. I've met a strong practitioner on numinous sky realm also, Sakura Buddha. I'm no match for him in the same realm." Hubugue's gaze flickered. "Why don't we go and meet Shu Xinghua first and research how to combine the divine treasures into one? After we do so, we can come back and complete the Bullfighting Palaces challenge." Qin Mu said with a smile, "After we manage to combine all divine treasures into one, you will be able to fly into the Celestial Palace directly. There will be no meaning to challenge Bullfighting Palace." Hubugue scratched his head and blushed. "That's indeed the case. We are still lacking in foundation now, so we can't defeat Senior Nyo. Let us leave Bullfighting Palace to find the senior brother Shu first." "Okay." The old bull stared angrily at the two people with his eyes wide open. He shouted, "Aren't you coming to fight? Come quickly, at most I'll go easy on both of you. Come now." Hubugue said apologetically, "Senior Nyo. Call me Nyo Sanduo." The old bull said angrily, "I've already said I would go easy, what more do you want? Come and give me a good fight." "Qin Mu, are you not going to save your teacher? Your teacher is still floating in the smelly ditch. If you still don't drag him up, he's going stink to death." Qin Mu hesitated. Saving teacher Woodcutter was important, but accompanying Hubugue to find Shu Xinghua and create a method to combine divine treasures into one, and soar towards the Celestial Palace seemed to be more interesting and meaningful. Furthermore, Saint Woodcutter was a god on Jade Pavilion realm. He shouldn't die even if he soaked for a year or more in the smelly ditch, so there was no need to hurry. However, he was the disciple of Woodcutter after all. If he didn't pull him out and just let him soak there, he wouldn't be able to explain himself. However, even if the old bull went easy on them, it was impossible for them to beat a strong practitioner on Emperor's throne. The old farmer was a strong practitioner on Emperor's throne, and he was an Emperor's throne that had entered the path with his martial soul. From numinous sky to Emperor's throne, there was an insurmountable gap. Sakura Buddha was on numinous sky realm, yet he still had to be shameless and beg for Brahma Buddha's true scripture. That showed how difficult it was to become an emperor's throne. When he was hesitating, the old farmer suddenly walked down from the emperor's throne and walked out of numinous sky hall. His face was full of wrinkles that made him look very old. "Sanduo, they have passed." The old bull was slightly stunned. He hurriedly asked, "Old master, they can't even pass my test and much less old master's test. Why has old master said they have passed?" The old farmer walked down the steps of numinous sky hall, and the old bull hurriedly got down on his front hooves to follow him like a bull. The old farmer shook his head. The purpose of Bullfighting Palace's tests is to let the children comprehend entering the path with their martial soul, for them to comprehend a path that could allow them to cross the divine bridge realm and levitate heavenwards, to give their descendants hope. I had once thought if someone defeated me, they would be able to create this path. He walked down and called over Qin Mu and Hubugue. He examined both of them, and his simple face that was filled with wrinkles like plowed land smiled. But I suddenly remembered, crossing the divine bridge and flying straight to the celestial palace. I have actually done it before. I was the first person who had a missing divine bridge. I didn't study much, so my path isn't suitable for others. Qin Mu and Hu Bugue were astonished and looked at him in disbelief. Who could have broken martial arts heavenly teacher's divine bridge? Since martial arts heavenly teacher had already entered the god realm with a missing realm, why didn't he impart his method to the people of bullfighting world? However, the 36 war gods of Jade Capital weren't astonished. It was evident that they had already known the old farmer was such a person. I had just thought it through. What I can do isn't what everybody can do. The old farmer said, I have contributed my whole life to the martial path, and I have nothing else in my heart. Sincerity, innocence, even though I have miraculous skills and miraculous arts, others can't learn it, and they can't master it. They also can't soar into the celestial palace as I did. Even if Ubugue cultivated to my step and soared into the celestial palace, he would only be walking in my footsteps. His technique still wouldn't be able to let more people in bullfighting world soar into the celestial palace. Woodcutter is right. This isn't the way to solve the problem of bullfighting palace. The corners of his eyes trembled, and he looked at Qin Mu. Woodcutter found me and told me that the reformers of eternal peace could have a solution to solving bullfighting palace's problem. I didn't believe him at first, but now I do. Woodcutter isn't completely useless after all. He has taken in a good disciple. Hubugue, you can leave bullfighting world now. A slither of hope was born in Qin Mu's heart, and he hurriedly asked, in that case, heavenly teacher, can I pull teacher out from the ditch? The old farmer's expression sank, and his face looked as though the old bull had plowed it 100 times. He couldn't see any smile, and could only see the wrinkles. I'm not like Woodcutter, who is full of nonsense and farts easily. I do whatever I say, and I said whoever dares to pull him out will have to take 3 punches from me. If you want to pull him out, you have to take 3 punches from me. Qin Mu jumped in shock, as the old farmer raised his rugged fist. With the overbearing atmosphere of being on the peak of the martial path, he smashed towards Qin Mu with a punch. Thump! His imposing power was boundless, but his fist was very light as it gently tapped on Qin Mu's chest. He knocked another 2 times, and 2 loud thumping sounds came from Qin Mu's chest. The old farmer pulled back his punch and sneered. Even though you have managed to achieve martial soul entering the path, you are still far from great success. Your corporeal body is still lacking. Continue to work hard, and don't waste your overlord body away. Do you understand? Qin Mu was delighted and surprised. Junior understands. The old farmer let out a smile and led everyone out. However, you aren't bad, you are truly not bad. Woodcutter isn't all talk, he still has some ability to teach you so well. Ian, that's not it, you are the overlord body, if I'm the one teaching you, you will only be better. Woodcutter is still not good. He's still inferior to me. He seemed to be very happy. The other war gods were also very happy and followed after him. Qin Mu looked around and looked at them. They were once famous and known throughout the world. The old farmer was even a well-known strong practitioner on Emperor's throne. Yet they all looked pure and simple, as though they were farmers that could be seen commonly. They were a bunch of cute people. But they were also a bunch of stubborn people. It was hard to make them change, but as long as they recognized their mistake, they would change even though they said they weren't willing to. Thus, they were still such cute people. Hubugue was ineffably excited. After leaving Bullfighting Palace, he immediately sprinted down to Bullfighting World below and prepared to head off after bidding farewell to friends and family. Qin Mu summoned the Dragon Qilin, and the Dragon Qilin was indeed having a nice nap outside Bullfighting Palace. He didn't pull Woodcutter up and run. Qin Mu felt a pang of sorrow. This is my mount, that is martial arts heavenly teacher's mount. There's also teacher Woodcutter's mount, the Black Tiger God, and senior brother Ba Shan's green bull. The dragon Qin had a good sleep and was full of vigor. However, he was distracted after not eating for over 10 days. He kept glancing at Qin Mu wanting to remind him, but he didn't dare to. In the village, Saint Woodcutter got pulled out, and Qin Mu got busy trying to attach his broken bones back together, treating his injuries. He soaked him in a huge medicinal cauldron and boiled him with fire. Woodcutter held onto a huge bowl to drink the concoction, while the old farmer sat on a stool beside him. The old bull just sat on the ground at the door and slowly puffed his water pipe, which kept bubbling. Qin Mu just sat beside the old bull and asked him, "Senior brother Sanduo, you don't have to plow the land today." The old bull slowly said, "I'm done. I've just planted the grains. You didn't teach the Overlord body, you couldn't have." In the room, the old farmer took a glance at Woodcutter, and spoke at a slow speed that was similar to the old bull. Woodcutter finished the medicinal concoction, and gave a satisfying burp before passing the bowl to him. "He's my disciple, so he's taught by me. You don't have such an outstanding disciple, you don't have this ability, and you can't teach as well." The old farmer snorted and took over the empty bowl. "He wasn't taught by you, so what are you so pleased about? You just got credit by chance again. I'm giving face to the Overlord body this time by sparing you, else I would have left you to soak in the smelly ditch for over 10 years. I would have let you rot until only your mouth was left." Saint Woodcutter said righteously, "Master shows them the way, cultivation lies in oneself. I have students in all of the worlds, who has taught you and who have you taught?" The old farmer was silent. Woodcutter said calmly, "You are indeed the first in the martial path, in this world, in this universe, even in the old celestial heavens. There might not be a person who can surpass you in the martial path. To be able to use your power of the martial path, and soar towards the celestial palace under the condition of missing a divine bridge, cultivating into an unrivaled martial god, there will only be you. Not to say 20,000 years, even if hundreds of thousands of years pass by, there will only be you. You can succeed, but others might not be able to succeed as you did. You can't save the people of bullfighting world." The old farmer was silent. Woodcutter continued to say, "However, eternal peace's reform can. Our grudge is small. I know these years have been hard on you, and I know you had found these orphans and widows after the war to look after them. You have done many things after founding Emperor era was wiped out. You want to find a path of survival for them, but you are too stupid, you still couldn't find this way after 20,000 years." The old farmer gave off a growl that was similar to a trapped beast. After founding Emperor era had been wiped out, he had taken care of the orphans his comrades had left behind, but he could only look at them slowly dying from old age. It was an immense torture, and it filled his heart with guilt. "Walk out of it. If you walk out, you will be the martial saint." Saint Woodcutter looked at him with a pitiful gaze, but there was more anticipation. "Founding Emperor conferred us as heavenly teachers, but I'm the only one that's conferred as a saint. However, his intention was that the 4 of us could all be saints. You are martial arts heavenly teacher, and you are number 1 in martial power. However, a saint isn't purely martial power. Walk out of it, and you will be the only martial saint, martial arts heavenly teacher of founding emperor." The old farmer still remained silent. Woodcutter didn't continue to persuade him. He knew the old brother of his very well, and knew that he was very stubborn. However, he wasn't inflexible, he was just stubborn with his words. He had already made his point, and he would understand. He would become the one and only martial saint. "I'm persuaded by you. I indeed want to take a look at eternal peace's reform." The old farmer suddenly said, "However, I won't help eternal peace in any way. Our founding emperor era has also been built up from nothing. Since eternal peace has been so highly praised by you, without our help, they can also develop to the height of founding emperor era. So why do they need the help of us failures? Woodcutter said with a smile, we are just buying more time for them, we can't let them be wiped out by the old celestial heavens when they are still young. This doesn't go against your intention, right? During the start of founding emperor era, some ruins of high emperor era also provided us with some help. The old farmer revealed a smile and said, you have made me recall those greenhorn days. Actually, I'm also considered half a person from high emperor era. Actually, we are all half a person from high emperor era, including founding emperor. Woodcutter said, life is like this, it never ends. Inheritance is the same, being passed down from one era to another. Your spirit of the martial path must be passed down. You cannot let your inheritance disappear. The old farmer got up and he sneered. But I won't forgive you just because of this. After I walk out of here, after I walk out of the great ruins, I will still beat you up when I'm in a bad mood. Pray to your ancestors that you can grow a few realms to be able to take on my fists. He walked out of the house. The smile on Woodcutter's face froze. Qin Mu walked in and helped him change his medicine. He whispered, do teacher and martial arts heavenly teacher have a grudge? Woodcutter was listless and sighed. I guess so. But it's all in the past. It was obvious he didn't want to mention that past. Qin Mu blinked his eyes and was even more curious, however, he kept quiet. Woodcutter was speechless from anger. What's that expression of yours? Do you want to know the private matters of others that much? Qin Mu didn't say a word. Woodcutter sighed and said, it's fine if I tell you. Actually back then, him, me, scholar, and fisherman had very good relationships. Even though my cultivation was the weakest, they all respected me. Founding emperor made me in charge of the reform and pushed me to the front of the stage. What's so-called when a man is too outstanding, they will receive the admiration of women. Back then, he had a girl he liked. Qin Mu changed his medicine, and his ears couldn't help perking up. He listened carefully. Outside the door, the old bull also stopped blowing on his water pipe. His ear also sneaked in from outside. The dragon Qilin was originally listless and lying on the ground. At that moment, he suddenly raised his head and twitched his ears. Part 278. Saint Woodcutter reminisced about the past and only after a while, said calmly, I was obsessed with the reform then and felt that I could carry out my vast plan and carry out my dream. So I didn't have time for relationship. Thus, even when there were girls that liked me, I didn't have the time to date them. Qin Mu blinked his eyes. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was also such a person, and the reason why he didn't become another woodcutter was that he married his current wife. He even had a child. In the past, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor was absolutely rational. He could even let himself get injured to act as bait for the enemies to show themselves. Now, Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor had a little more human emotions. Back then, I already realized that Farmer was somewhat unhappy with me, and I was indeed a person without feelings. That girl was indeed pretty, and no matter how you looked at her, she was the perfect partner. Yet, Founding Emperor had tasked me with such an important task. If I used the power Founding Emperor had given me to hook up with a young girl, wouldn't I be disappointing Founding Emperor's expectations? Saint Woodcutter said calmly, thus I told that girl, Yunshi, I'm not the lifelong partner you are looking for. The task Founding Emperor has given me is important, and there are too many things in the world waiting for me to reform. Therefore, I can only let down your feelings for me. Qin Mu was enthralled, and he said with a smile, Teacher, you can always work things out between family and country. Why did you have to reject her? If you rejected her, how did you offend martial arts heavenly teacher? Her name was Yang Yunshi, and she was a very charming woman. It was evident that Woodcutter was recalling the woman that stood out the most, and he fell into a daze. He said softly with a rare gentleness, "She was very intelligent and very talented. I was very happy that she admired me. However, I respected her more than I loved her. She asked me, Tienga, Guan Cha has feelings for me, is he a person I could rely on for life? I smiled and told her, Guan Cha is a farmer." Woodcutter had a weird expression. I told her, Guan Cha's love for the martial path surpasses his love for you. He has true love for the martial path, but you are only a short-term infatuation. Guan Cha isn't a person that's worth relying on for life. I said that from a friend's perspective, and analyzed Guan Cha's characteristics. I was very accurate, but the sentence must have fallen into Guan Cha's ears afterward, therefore, he has always seen me as a thorn. Qin Mu said, "Teacher is really an asshole." No, that's not what I meant. He hugged his head, as he felt a searing pain from Woodcutter bashing him on the head. Woodcutter continued to say, afterward, Yang Yunshi didn't marry anyone, she even changed her name and donned a male outfit. She said, the two most outstanding men she had met in the world, one had unmatched wisdom and a heart for the world, and one was brave and invincible with an unwavering Tao heart. After meeting those two men, no other men could come into her view, therefore, she changed her name and dressed herself up as a man. She said she would never change back into female clothing if she doesn't meet a man that surpasses us. He slowly drifted into a daze and shook his head. She never changed back. Even though Guan Cha met her a lot of times and has a good relationship with her, he has never recognized her. Qin Mu cried out, martial arts heavenly teacher is an existence on Emperor's throne that has entered the path with his martial soul. How could he not recognize Yang Yunshi who dressed up as a male? Woodcutter said with a smile, Yang Yunshi has extremely high abilities, and she is very shrewd. If she doesn't want him to recognize her, he won't. Furthermore, Farmer's brain is full of muscles, so how would he have good judgment? Yang Yunshi even beat him up numerous times, and he doesn't even recognize her. Instead, he's full of respect for her and just throws me attitude. Beat up martial arts heavenly teacher numerous times. Qin Mu's eyes were filled with doubt. This big sister Yang Yunshi. Woodcutter scolded him, call her senior uncle. Don't call her big sister. Qin Mu muttered resentfully, teacher, you said that senior uncle Yang Yunshi changed her name, what is her name now? There aren't many people that could beat up martial arts heavenly teacher. I've heard martial arts heavenly teacher mention one person who had toyed with him. However, that person isn't called Yunshi, the name seemed to be Zishi. Woodcutter didn't say a word and looked out the door. The old bull outside the door pulled back his ear and continued to puff his water pipe. However, the fire had long extinguished. The dragon Chilean hurriedly laid prone on the ground and pretended to fall asleep. His snore was as loud as thunder. Woodcutter got up and donned his clothes. I feel my injuries becoming much better. I can just recuperate my body slowly with creation techniques, and there won't be any hidden ailments left behind. Qin Mu hurriedly asked, are heavenly teachers Zishi and Yang Yunshi the same person? Woodcutter didn't reply to him and walked out. Guan Cha must definitely come out of the mountain this time. Once Guan Cha is out, there will be much space to move around. Aren't you planning to meet Shu Xinghua with Hubugue? In that case, Guan Cha might follow you guys to meet Shu Xinghua. I still have things to do, so I'll be taking my leave first. Qin Mu followed him and said, I still plan to meet with Big Sister Dieyue and look at how she and Qian Shu will reconstruct Fengdu. Saint Woodcutter shook his head and said, reconstructing Fengdu isn't something that can be done instantly. Furthermore, if she is finding Qian Shu, she most likely won't be able to find him. This fellow must be hiding in the best wine refinery in eternal peace, drinking the wine. Qin Mu's eyes lit up, and he said with a smile, in that case, he must be in the wine store in the Imperial Palace. I will try to think of a way to inform Dieyue, and get her to find Tian Shu. Woodcutter walked out and took a glance at the old bull that was still puffing on the water pipe. The fire is extinguished. The old bull hurriedly lit up the fire, and a puff of thick smoke spewed out to choke the old bull, causing him to tear up. Don't say what you should say. Woodcutter said, even though I can't do anything to you, it's still very simple for the heavenly teacher that's ranked second to kill you. The old bull hurriedly nodded his head and smiled apologetically. Big heavenly teacher, don't worry, I understand. Saint Woodcutter walked over to the dragon Qin, who was feigning sleep. It's easy for you to be served on a plate if you talk too much. The dragon Qin gulped and crawled up. He lowered his eyes and smiled apologetically as well. My lips are the tightest. I have never leaked any of Cult Master's awkward incidents. Qin Mu hesitated for a moment and stroked the few short strands of beard on his chin. Fatty Dragon knows a lot of my awkward incidents. I can't leave him alive. What should I do? Woodcutter found the old farmer and bowed farewell to him. The old farmer didn't like to regard him, so he just closed his eyes and snored. Woodcutter could only leave. The old farmer snorted and spat at his back view. Qin Mu had a weird expression. The two heavenly teachers were both tens of thousand years old, yet they were both like children. Not long later, Hubugue carried a small sack out from bullfighting world. He wore simple clothes and looked very strong and trained. The villagers moved the huge mountain back again, and used some method to seal bullfighting world. Qin Mu looked around and couldn't find any trace of the space being sealed, and he clicked his tongue in wonder. From the encounter in bullfighting world and the Great Ruins were completely separated. When night fell in the Great Ruins, the darkness wouldn't be able to invade bullfighting world, which also meant that bullfighting world wasn't in that world. Furthermore, Hubugue also said that the martial arts practitioners of bullfighting world would even go to the devil world when they were 13 to fight with the strong practitioners of the devil world as training. That meant that bullfighting world was probably very far from the Great Ruins, and it might even be further than what he could imagine. Strong practitioners on Emperor's throne truly have remarkable abilities. Qin Mu took a glance at the old farmer, and that old farmer led the old bull over. He said to the villagers, I'll be going out to walk around and follow them to meet that person called Shu Xinghua. I want to see if he's truly capable. If he is, I will go take a look at eternal peace. If he isn't, help me catch Woodcutter if you guys see him again. I'll punch him to death, and come back to return to seclusion. Everyone acknowledged and said, Heavenly Teacher, don't worry. We will stay here and guard Bullfighting Palace, and if we meet Big Heavenly Teacher, we'll seize him. The old farmer rode on the bull's back, and Qin Mu sat on the dragon Chilin's back while Hubugue walked on his feet. Qin Mu invited him up, but Hubugue shook his head. I run fast. Qin Mu took a look at the dragon Qilin, and the dragon Qilin felt his hair standing on end. He hurriedly ran, with all his strength, and felt he could definitely shake off Hubugue with his lightning-fast speed. Never did he expect the old bull to be following steadily behind him with the old farmer on him while Hubugue jumped from mountain to mountain, sprinting at an extremely fast speed. This fellow's corporeal body is even stronger than mine. The dragon Qilin jumped in shock, and felt chills coming from his back. He thought to himself, they don't know where Shu Xinghua is, thus they are following me. Otherwise, they would have run ahead. Since they are following me, they won't surpass me, and Cult Master won't lay his hands on me then. Qin Mu projected out his primordial spirit, and contacted Shu Xinghua. He said to Hubugue, Shu Xinghua is now at West Earth, he's currently constructing High Heavens Academy, so we can meet him at West Earth. Hubugue's spirit stirred. The old farmer sat on the bull's back and said calmly, "If Shuxinghua is useless, I'll beat Woodcutter to death." Qin Mu said with a smile, "Brother Shu is brimming with talent. If there was no me, he would be an unrivaled talent in this world. Once martial arts heavenly teacher meets him, you will definitely be happy." The old farmer snorted. After 6 to 7 days, they arrived at the vicinity of West Earth's True Heaven Palace. The women of True Heaven Palace were currently carrying out large-scale construction and building palaces, and there were quite a number of palaces already built. Xu Xinghua and Jing Yang had already received news from Qin Mu, so they came forth to welcome. Qin Mu jumped down from the dragon Chilean's back and looked around. He could only see High Heavens Academy filled with the local conditions and customs of West Earth. The construction was beautiful and decorated with fresh flowers and green leaves. There was no lack of the 4 seasons. Virtuous husband and wife, this is martial arts heavenly teacher of founding Emperor God dynasty, this is senior brother Nyo Sanduo. Qin Mu introduced them. And this is Hubugue, the person I mentioned to you. He entered the path with his martial soul, and doesn't have divine bridge realm. Xu Xinghua examined Hubugue, and his eyes lit up. Can brother Hu open up your divine treasures? Several loud booms came from Hubugue's body as his spirit embryo, 5 elements, 6 directions, 7 stars, celestial being, and life and death divine treasure opened up. When he reached divine bridge divine treasure, the entire divine bridge divine treasure had completely disappeared. He had no divine bridge divine treasure at all. Countless runes flew around Xu Xinghua, and he calculated the location of Hubugue's divine bridge divine treasure. After a moment, he shook his head. You really don't have divine bridge divine treasure. Good, good. I'll go beat your teacher to death, the old farmer said to Qin Mu. Xu Xinghua walked around Hubugue, and his eyes flashed with excitement. He hurriedly said, Brother Hu, your foundation is too good. I can really test the method of combining divine treasures that I have created. I can't do, I'm an overlord body, but I realized it too late. As a result, my foundation is not as stable. Even though I want to combine my divine treasures, my cultivation is lacking. I plan to use Brother Qin for my experiment, but your corporeal body is sturdy, and your foundation is good. You are just the right test subject for me. That's right. Are you also an overlord body? The old farmer stopped and said to Qin Mu, if he kills Hubugue, I'll kill him before killing you. It was also Qin Mu's first time seeing such a crazed side of Xu Xinghua, and he was slightly uneasy. I originally created the technique to fuse the 7 stars realm and 6 directions realm. It's called 7 stars 6 directions primordial spirit technique. I imparted it to Brother Qin, who passed it down to the people. However, not many people mastered it. Xu Xinghua didn't stop his steps and suddenly appeared in the spirit embryo divine treasure of Hubugue's body, a willow branch in his hand. That willow branch was a divine wood that could change its length at will and had all kinds of marked scales upon it. He threw up the willow branch and began to measure Hubugue's spirit embryo divine treasure, while Jing Yang helped out on the side, recording all kinds of data. The coordination between the husband and wife was very tight. Because there aren't many people that succeeded and only outstanding people like Zhong Kong, Wang Muren, Lin Xian, and Hu Linga managed to succeed, I felt this technique wasn't matured yet. Thus with this technique as a foundation, I created a new method to combine the divine treasures. It's called the Builder Tree Innate Divine Bridge. Xu Xinghua finished measuring the spirit embryo divine treasure, and then proceeded to the 5 elements divine treasure with Jing Yang, and started measuring the height of heaven and earth in the 5 elements divine treasure. He continued to say, however, this technique is an extremely troublesome technique. Everyone's divine treasures are different, So the data required for the technique would be different. This is why everyone that cultivates this technique will have to measure the model of their divine treasures in detail and adjust the technique according to different data. Only then can a builder tree divine bridge that starts from the spirit embryo divine treasure be determined. Qin Mu's mind was shaken, and he cried out, "Brother Shu, if you complete this building tree innate divine bridge, it will be a huge reform in technique. A divine treasure that reaches straight to the celestial palace, its change to the paths, skills, and divine arts can't be estimated. The builder tree innate divine bridge is more important than the primordial spirit guide that Yushio and I created." Shu Xinghua revealed a smile. "If I want to surpass you and make you admit you are the pseudo-overlord body, how could I not have my own ideas? However, I'm still unable to do it on my own. The algebra needed by the builder tree innate divine bridge technique is too profound. The amount of calculation has surpassed my horizons and knowledge, therefore, I need people to help me." "You went to invite Dao Master Lin Xian to help?" Qin Mu was curious. Shu Xinghua was currently measuring the mountains of the 5 elements, and didn't have time to reply. Jin Yang said with a smile, "Not only Dao Master Lin Xian. My husband has even found Princess Xiao, Saint Xiong, Wang Muren, and also other people of Heaven Alliance. Other than them, there's also algebra experts like Imperial Preceptor and the Black Tiger God. My husband's relationship with Grandmaster isn't bad either, so he invited him over to calculate the builder tree innate divine bridge as well." Qin Mu stared with his eyes wide open. Some of these people were enemies, and they even got invited by Shu Xinghua. Was Shu Xinghua's human network really so vast? Jin Yang said with a smile, "Wang Muren has a grudge with Imperial Preceptor, Grandmaster has a grudge with everyone. But when they heard my husband was planning to construct the builder tree innate divine bridge, which could press down on Cult Master Qin's limelight, they were all very happy. They wanted Cult Master Qin to admit defeat, so they all came over gladly." "Came over gladly?" Qin Mu snorted. Jin Yang continued to say, "The Emperor was also very happy. Even though he couldn't hurry over, he sent orders to all the big academies and summoned the scholars with the highest attainments in algebra to come over and help out. The Emperor then told this to Saint Woodcutter, and Saint also came to help. The Emperor was also very happy. My teacher also went." Qin Mu grunted and felt resent in his heart. "Teacher Woodcutter also went to press down on my limelight. I should have left him to rot in the ditch. That's not right. The reason why Teacher Woodcutter dared to find martial arts heavenly teacher was probably because he completed the builder tree innate divine bridge with Shu Xinghua and the rest. Never did he expect martial arts heavenly teacher to not listen to him and just cripple him before throwing him into the ditch. He deserves it." He took a glance at the dragon Qilin and asked pleasantly, "Fatty dragon, you didn't also go, did you?" The dragon Qilin hurriedly shook his head. "Brother Tiger invited me, but I didn't go." "But you didn't tell me about this." Qin Mu didn't have a pleasant expression. The dragon Qilin said timidly, "Back then, Cult Master was refining your sword pellet, and after you refined your sword pellet, you delved into refining treasures with explosions." Jin Yang said, "Afterward, First Ancestor met Xingen and told him about this. Xingen respected First Ancestor a lot, and when he heard it could make Cult Master Qin admit defeat, he came running over and was quite a huge help. We managed to succeed in our calculation, and my husband deduced the builder tree innate divine bridge according to the data. However, no one was able to cultivate it." She sighed and said, "Finally, my husband deduced that the requirement needed for the corporeal body is too high. If the corporeal body isn't strong enough, it would be too difficult to withstand the terrifying pressure coming from fusing the divine treasures. Nobody has such a powerful corporeal body, so we could only leave it at that. There's also Xingen. Veins popped out on Qin Mu's forehead. Could my character be inferior to even Xing'an and Grandmaster? But Brother Hu Bugui's corporeal body is strong to such an extent. Xu Xinghua finished measuring the 5 elements, divine treasure, and proceeded to Hu Bugui's 6 directions, divine treasure. Brother Hu Bugui has the strongest corporeal body among everyone I've met. Anyone else that cultivates the Builder Tree Innate Divine Bridge will die, but Brother Hu won't die. He was full of confidence. The husband and wife finished measuring the 6 directions, divine treasure, and proceeded to the 7 stars, divine treasure, before measuring the celestial being and life and death. Finally, they completed the measurement of Hu Bugui's divine treasures perfectly. The husband and wife flew out of Hu Bugui's divine treasures, and Xu Xinghua immediately started to make adjustments to the Builder Tree Innate Divine Bridge according to the data he had measured. He had already constructed the algebra model of the Builder Tree Innate Divine Bridge. So he just needed to make some changes by using Hu Bugui's data, and he would be able to adjust the technique to suit Hu Bugui's corporeal body. Qin Mu exclaimed to himself in admiration, "To defeat me, Xu Xinghua, and that bunch of experts really put in quite the effort." However, this Builder Tree Innate Divine Bridge is truly intricate. It can almost be called the natural beauty of algebra. He was an algebra expert too. The old farmer, the old bull, and Hu Bugui were at a loss from seeing what they were seeing, but Qin Mu was able to admire the beauty of the Builder Tree Innate Divine Bridge. The Builder Tree Divine Bridge used algebra to construct a divine treasure that would be rooted in the spirit platform and 6 directions land. The roots of the divine bridge would delve deep into Yudu, while the big roots would be interlinked with the 5 elements mountains. Outside the crown of the tree would be the sun and moon circulating, and the 5 elements stars would be between the branches. The rest of the stars would be hidden in the leaves. And at the peak of the divine tree's crown, it would be on a similar height with the divine bridge. According to the broken bridges of the people in eternal peace, the crown of the tree could fill up the space between the celestial palace and the broken divine bridge, connecting the divine bridge in another way. That saved people the trouble of having to cultivate secrets of Magpie Bridge, secrets of mysterious guide, and secrets of divine crossing. When Xu Xinghua, woodcutter, imperial preceptor, Xing'an and the rest calculated, they must have added these 3 secrets of the divine bridge into the Builder Tree Innate Divine Bridge. However, to the martial arts practitioners of bullfighting world, the Builder Tree Divine Bridge only had the middle portion. There was no front and back portion of the tree. If one's cultivation was still not enough, they would still be unable to fly into the celestial palace. He was an algebra expert, the founder of computation canon of supreme molecule, so his attainments were extremely high, and he could immediately think of expanding the crown of the Builder Tree to create a man-made divine bridge, divine treasure. However, this would require far more algebra calculations on top of the foundation of the Builder Tree Innate Divine Bridge. When Xu Xinghua finished the calculations, his vital qi constructed a tiny sapling, and he flicked it to send it into Hu Bugui's divine treasure. This small tree sapling rooted itself in Hu Bugui's spirit platform land and began to grow. Qin Mu immediately saw that Xu Xinghua had used the divine art of plant a devil in the Tao heart from Heavenly Saint cult's great educational Heavenly Devil scriptures. Woodcutter must have taught it to him. He just needed to use a small tree sapling as a seed to plant this technique in Hu Bugui's technique. By absorbing Hu Bugui's vital qi, the sapling would grow furiously and become a towering builder tree. Xu Xinghua hesitated for a moment and didn't activate the small sapling immediately. He probed first. "Brother Hu, are you afraid of death?" Hu Bugui shook his head and said, "I'm not." Xu Xinghua let out a sigh of relief. The old farmer said calmly, "Xu Xinghua, are you afraid of death?" Xu Xinghua was slightly stunned and didn't know what he meant. Cold sweat rolled down Qin Mu's forehead, and he asked him softly, "Brother Xu, how confident are you this time? Xu Xinghua was full of confidence as he raised 3 fingers. 30%. Qin Mu smiled from anger. Brother Xu, you weren't like this in the past. You would never make a move when you weren't 80 to 90% confident. 30%. Who are you learning from? You have fallen. I learned from you. Xu Xinghua executed his vital qi, and the sapling inside Hu Bugui's body started to grow furiously. It absorbed Hu Bugui's vital qi at a crazy speed. The small sapling quickly grew to 300 yards, 3,000 yards, and it soon surpassed the various mountains on the spirit platform land. It stretched into the clouds and still continued to grow. This huge towering tree had already grown to the extent where it was about to touch the sky. Suddenly, a loud rumble rang out as the tree broke through the top of the barrier, which contained the spirit embryo divine treasure, 5 elements divine treasure, and 6 directions divine treasure. Hu Bugui grunted, and his bones started to pop. His corporeal body was enduring incomparably heavy pressure, and even though the tenacity of his muscles was astonishing, he had still become a bag of bones at that instant. That was his muscles being pressed down to become a thin layer of membrane to stick onto his bones. This kind of pressure wasn't from up to down, nor was it from outside to inside. Instead, the pressure was coming from all aspects of the corporeal body, and that was the most terrifying. Hu Bugui's bones popped from the pressure, and they seemed to be ready to explode anytime. Everyone was nervous, and Xu Xinghua told Jing Yang after thinking for a moment, "Dear, the growth of the builder tree is too fast. It must be because of brother whose magic power and cultivation having slightly exceeded my expectations. His cultivation is truly pure and dense, and it's not inferior to mine." Why does this sentence sound so familiar? Qin Mu thought to himself. The builder tree absorbed his vital qi cultivation, and the growth will only be faster and faster. It will break through the 7 stars barrier next, and the pressure will only increase. Xu Xinghua was completely calm, unlike the rest, and just continued to say calmly, 7 stars divine treasure will only let the builder tree grow even faster. When the tree reaches celestial being realm, the pressure will multiply once again. The roots of the builder tree will then penetrated through his land and latch themselves onto the Yudu in life and death divine treasure. At that time, that's when the pressure is at its strongest. Brother Qin, I might have overestimated earlier. I feel there's only 20% chance of succeeding. Cult Master, are we going to run? The dragon Qilin whispered. Qin Mu secretly shook his head, and Gate of Heaven influence suddenly appeared behind him. He was ready to save him if Hu Bugui got crushed by the pressure. Xu Xinghua saw the situation and shook his head. Cult Master, you won't be able to save him if we fail. His primordial spirit would also be crushed, and his soul will scatter. It won't fall into Yudu. He was still very calm. The corners of Qin Mu's eyes twitched, and he said politely to the old farmer, "Senior uncle, Junior once gathered Goddess of Heavenly Yin's soul back. Even when her soul was scattered, Junior still managed to salvage it. Senior uncle, don't worry, there's no need to worry, just keep your fist back." This video will end here.